Competition is a great thing, and it generally encourages companies to take the initiative in improving their products. Sometimes it's a new frame, maybe even a new all-in-one that's lighter than previous versions, and sometimes it's a simple change of materials. However, Newbie Drone takes this a step further with their Hummingbird V3.1 Race Spec Betaflight, a drone that is so hyper-focused on reducing weight for the sole purpose of lightweight racing that it honestly surprised me with how well it performed in other aspects like freestyle. Despite being the lightest Betaflight as of writing the script at 16.5 grams, nothing is perfect, and though the race spec is insanely capable, I'll be upfront with you guys, and I'll say that some will struggle with the Hummingbird race spec and some will absolutely enjoy it. Now, let's get into which category you'd fall into. Let's quickly go over the parts that come with the Hummingbird V3.1 Race Spec Edition. Spare set of ASI 31mm props, 15 spare motor screws, a pretty generic prop remover, a pretty lightweight spare TPU canopy that I actually kinda like, and some stickers which I will always accept. At least more than this prop remover, which I absolutely hate. Unboxing done, let's go into the race specs. The Race Spec edition of the Hummingbird V3.1 is different from the standard version in a number of ways that are mostly either to improve performance or to lessen weight. Changes such as using lighter RS0702 30,000 kV motors, which uses the enabled stator wires connected directly to the all-in-one. On the other hand, the standard Hummingbird uses 0802 motors with motor connectors. The Race Spec is using their light as cockroach frame, which is half a gram lighter compared to their standard one. It is using an A30 connector instead of the standard version's PH 2.0, so you can use A30 or BT 2.0 connectors with this. The Race Spec is also using Betaflight 4.5 firmware, and I know what you're thinking. What is you ask? I honestly don't know much about it too. I did a bit of research, so more on later. Lastly, I also want to mention that the standard Hummingbird V3.1 is actually $10 cheaper than the race spec version at $89.99 USD, so just something to consider. Wanna see something? It's my CAC. Focusing now on the all-in-one, it has an F411 processor paired with the BMI270 gyro, and surprisingly, this tiny flight controller has 12 amp ESCs, which certainly is more than double than the other available 5-in-1s in the market right now. This will just give your ESCs a bit more headroom to avoid getting toasty. However, one thing that I think a lot of people will not like is the use of a built-in SPI ELRS receiver, which will restrict you to using the ELRS version that Betaflight version is paired with, which in this case is version 3.xx. Another aspect that is good for some and bad for others is the VTX outputting a maximum of 25 milliwatts. This is actually following the specifications of some racing competitions, but naturally you'll get less video range compared to something with 400 milliwatts. I do want to mention that I mostly fly 25 milliwatts anyways, mostly because you have a longer flight time and the VTXs don't heat up as much, so it effectively lengthens the VTX's lifespan. Speaking of video, the camera is not something that I like. The FOV is around 120 degrees with a weight of 1.7 grams. It's considerably more grainy and does not do well in both dark and bright environments, and this is definitely an area where improvements can be made. I also want to mention that for all my flights in this video, I did adjust the canopy to have a slightly smaller camera angle by just moving the position of the front mount, which gave me around 30 degrees of camera angle. Lastly, one thing that I found really interesting are these Hummingbird RS 0702 30,000 kV motors, which surprisingly very quiet even after weeks of testing.
Do you guys hear that? It's so quiet. It is so quiet. I've flown this for a month now. It is so quiet.
The use of stator wires directly connected to the all-in-one allows it to be extremely lightweight compared to other 0702s, but at the cost of repairability since you can't just easily swap out motor wires. I haven't broken any of the motors or motor wires on this, but my intuition thinks that it's going to be a little bit harder to replace a motor. I don't have any basis for this next statement either, but I would think that having stiff enamel wires connected to tiny pads increases the chances of them peeling off. Just a hunch though, I don't have anything to back that up. I also know that some of you probably just clenched your butt cheeks at the sight of how small those shoulder pads are, but don't worry, my smart nugget, there are larger pads on the top side. It's like playing Soul's game on easy mode. Of course I want my shoulder joints to bridge 90% of the time, as they're intended to. Going back to CAC, it's in all caps, it's not CAC, it's CAC! Regardless if you scream it or not, CAC is a custom Betaflight target that allows features like average throttle, number of CACs or times you went 100% throttle, and has a special OSD menu and warning system like let's go when arming, ain't leaving when your battery is low, or the sorry when you're turtle moding, which I honestly find pretty funny.
No amount of apologies will ever fix how shitty turtle mode is sometimes.
There are more features than what I've just mentioned so far, so if you want to learn more about it, there's going to be related links in the description about CAC from people who are more knowledgeable about it. Coupled with a high camera angle, this is where I would mention that only skilled pilots will be able to make the most out of the lightweight and KV of the race spec. Heck, even Newbie Drone even mentions it on their product page that beginners need to essentially get good. I got it in. Another cool thing I want to mention is that there are still things you can do to improve the Hummingbird race spec, including making it lighter. As mentioned, you can change to peak screws to reduce another half a gram, you can change the camera to something you prefer more. I would also personally suggest adding a piece of foam underneath your camera to protect your all-in-one and camera from colliding in a crash. Lastly, I did do some research on the Hummingbird and Newbie Drone as a whole, did some review reading, looked at some comments and some forums, and I want to be clear about this. I was really surprised with the polarity of opinions. Some say it's bad, some say it's amazing, and I'm just one reviewer who happens to have flown this for around 1 month, and I personally think that it's been great so far. I haven't had any issues with this, but that could just be a reviewer's luck or a good batch. So if you guys have any stories, good or bad, let us know in the comment section to help give others more perspectives about this. I'm not kidding that I've had so much fun with this in an open space like my garden, but of course gusts of wind will still make it shake a bit, but it was far from unflyable.
But it is quite literally a very windy day.
In fact, it handled wind pretty well in my months-long testing. I actually want to show off a bit, but I did learn how to somewhat do a wall ride. I think that's a wall ride, maybe? I'm not sure. And I'm slowly getting used to other tricks that I actually rarely do, given that I fly mostly in my room. The high camera angle is actually usable if you have an open space like a street or garden, which makes doing multiple tricks in a row and keeping your momentum pretty fun and doable. This is just my opinion, but the RS had the perfect blend of smoothness and punch. I actually found myself flying a lot more outdoors than indoors, and honestly, if you don't mind repairing, which is gonna happen anyways to all whoops, the race spec is actually a good outdoor freestyler. Naturally, trying new tricks and pushing myself harder resulted in many crashes, but so far, my Hummingbird RS is still in one piece. One thing that I did try to do, which I always do with my Tiny Whoop reviews, is flying underneath the cars. If you're wondering why I do this, it's just my little throttle control test to see how manageable it is to maintain a low altitude, especially considering that the ground effect is also making it harder to hover. I will give it a passing mark, but it's far from perfect, mostly because of the low weight and the high kV, making the throttle pretty sensitive. This is honestly not a massive deal, as you can easily just go to Betaflight, go to your rate profile, set your throttle mid, and then just play around with the Expo. This should greatly help with the throttle management of any drone and hopefully also improve the level of controllability. As many people mentioned, the Hummingbird Race Spec isn't for the faint of heart and definitely not for beginners looking to get into racing. It's more suited for pilots who already have some technical skill in racing and are perhaps looking for a good build that already meets racing specifications. In my room, it was just a lot of crashing from reacting too slow in sharp turns, which isn't the drone's fault, but just me having a skill issue.
I think I lost all my scale. This is frustrating! Ah, I just hit myself in the face. My brain's just too slow. Ain't leaving. I have nowhere else to go. This is my room. Land now. Okay. Ah.
I will say that I did eventually get some good flights inside my room, but it definitely did not take a few days to get used to the speed of the Hummingbird Race Spec. The low weight actually made it insanely easy to change directions on a dime when flying on my first floor, but it takes a bit more effort and muscle memory for something like flying in my small room. But I can safely say that whenever I did crash, the Hummingbird just mostly bounced off.
Can I Maddie? I did it. First try. Actually, first try. That was me. Ah! Oh! I did that? Okay. That was intentional. That was intentional. I'm not gonna do it again though, cause I did it again! Ah, that's crazy. I'm not doing it a third time. Nope, nope, nope. Not gonna do that. Nope. See, I told me. Two was enough. I told you I had skill. I'm such a good pilot. I think I lost all my scale.
Overall, I think for its price point, it's really aimed for two sets of people. The first are people who are experienced racing pilots who want something that already works and follows racing regulations out of the box. The 16.5 gram weight, which can be lowered, is ideal for racing, which allows it to maneuver quickly, precisely, and accurately. The second set could be for novice pilots who want to fly this outside. I know it's a bit unconventional to fly a 65 outdoors, but if you have the space to zoom around with a high camera angle, the experience is definitely a rewarding one. I honestly will say that I fall into that second set of people, and I have no problem admitting that I'm not yet at the skill level where I could fly this confidently and comfortably indoors. And that's completely fine. Every product has its own market, and it's up to you to decide if it's worth giving it a try. Anyways, that's all we have for this review on Newbie Drone's Hummingbird Race Spec Edition. It was really fun getting to fly this, and I'll be keeping this with me alongside my other whoops as a daily driver, and hopefully also something that helps me get better at racing. A huge thank you to Newbie Drone for sending the race spec over for review. As I've mentioned in the beginning of this video, it's great that we're getting more options these days and an overall positive direction in their quality and performance. And honestly speaking, the race spec is one good example of that. As always, there's going to be a link in the description if you guys want to snatch one for yourself. If you reach the end of this video, I would like to say thank you to you as well. We're starting 2025 pretty strong, and I hope it continues to go well for you guys and for this channel. I actually still have a long list of things already planned for the next couple of months, like new frames, builds, reviews, and a new short form series I'm cooking up, so I hope you guys look forward to those. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope I see you all in the next one.
Sorry. Sorry, you suck at flying. Nope. To be or not to be? That is the question. To be tis nobler of the mind. I don't know the actual.
Arp, I get it. I don't blame the dog, I blame the owners. I'm too tired.
Is it too late now to say sorry? 'Cause it's a copyrighted song.
I don't know what I'm doing.